Death at Devil's Bridge, Chapter 10. But I always want to know the things one shouldn't do. So as to do them, asked her aunt. So as to choose, said Isabella. The Portrait of a Lady, Henry James. When the idea came to her, Bess knew immediately that she should not act on it. If she were caught, it would go hard with her, for there was no possible explanation she could make. But having reflected on the matter while she was milking her cow and feeding the chickens and gathering willows for a basket, she discovered that the idea was now firmly lodged in her head, and she could now not choose not to do it. So on Friday night, after it had grown dark, she gathered what she needed, tucked the bundles into her pocket of her skirt, and wrapped her black shawl around her. Then she set off in direction of Bishop's Keep. It was unlikely that motor cars would be out and about at this late hour, but Bess still throbbed with angry resentment at Lord Bradford, and she did not care to be knocked into any more watery ditches. So instead of following the road, she took the footpath into Bishop's Keep Park. The land lay in darkness, but the moon was bright enough to see the cars lined up near the road under a large banner that proclaimed "Grand Motor Car Exhibition and Race." She shuddered when she saw them, swift, steel-clad monsters out to devour the quiet lanes and destroy all the sleepy villages and run-down pedestrians alike. If what she read in the newspaper was true, soon every county family would have its horseless carriage, steam tractors would replace wagons, and even the vicar's bicycle would be motorized. The way life she loved would soon be gone forever. Beyond the exhibition area, illuminated by a gaslight so bright that it turned night into day, was the balloon's launch site, whence Bess was found. The night was still so quiet, and she could hear the low voices of two men tending the balloon well before she reached it. Bending low, clutching her shawl around her, she kept to the shadows of the trees. The balloon was a pale ghost that quivered, half filled with gas, within its net of confining ropes. In just a few hours it would rise from the earth and go soaring, sailing away through the bright air, to land who knew where. If she could go with it, but that was a vain hope. No, her only expectation of flying lay in the secret formula in the leather book tucked into the secret cache before her fireplace, where Gamma Gurton had hidden it after her successful flight. The balloon, moored to the ground and its gondola attached, was secured to a canvas hose through which the gas passed with a slight hissing sound. The fragile gondola was draped with hempen lines and ballast bags and 5-pronged metal anchor that hung from its side. Bess crept forward through the darkness and one eye on the two men. After a few moments the pair turned their backs and walked away, sharing quick nips from a brown bottle. Sure now that she was unobserved, Bess darted to the gondola and swiftly did what she had come to do. Then she slipped into the shadows, hurried back along the wood toward the exhibition area. Here there was only moonlight, flickering like the candle as thin clouds moved across the face of the moon, and she was less fearful of being seen. Scanning the line of mechanical monsters, she easily singled out the one that belonged to Lord Bradford. Going to it, she knelt down in the shadows and spent several moments completing her mission. Then she stood and brushed herself off, feeling strong and powerful and vindicated. A moment later, confident of having achieved success without detection, she stepped out boldly into the lane. She had tripped along only a few paces, however, when she was suddenly brought up short by the sight of a stout figure on the road in front of her and a familiar voice. "Bess Gurton," Sarah Pratt demanded, hands on hips. "Why in heaven's name are you skulking through the dark?" Sarah's voice became suspicious. "What are you doing that you shouldn't?" The day of the balloon's arrival had been a long one, and the night had dragged on longer even still. By dawn, Lawrence Quipley was fagged, understandably so, since Mr. Rolls had put him in charge of inflating the balloon, and Sir Charles had made him responsible for the plant that was producing the gas, two not inconsiderable tasks. Since yesterday, Lawrence and Thompson, the gardener, had tempted the gas plant's 3 retorts, fueling them in rotation. Every 9 hours opened an iron door of one of the 10-foot-long brick chambers, stepping back from the flash of flame and the pop of the remaining hydrogen and methane igniting in the air. The intense heat of the furnace had reduced the coal to a bright orange-red layer of coke, which they scooped with long-handled shovels into the combustion chamber below. They reloaded the retort with fresh coal and closed the door, retreating to a cooler spot to wipe the sweat from their faces. Thompson, complaining mightily that he had hired on to tend roses in the sunshine, not to stoke gas plants by moonlight. It had taken a half bottle of whiskey to soothe the man's ruffled spirit. Thompson hadn't been Lawrence's only problem. There had been one or two difficulties with the Daimler, which he'd been required to attend to. Then the balloon, that unfamiliar and rather unwieldy object, had caused him some concern when one of its seams sprung a leak. But for all his bone weariness, Lawrence was exhilarated. Looking up into the misty pre-dawn sky, he could see that the balloon was already tugging at its mooring lines. By 10 a.m., the scheduled time of ascent, the fog would have burned away. The balloon would have reached its functional capacity, fully capable of lifting its team of aeronauts into the heavens. On the other matter, under his consideration, Lawrence was not quite so pleased. He had thought of several possible ways of persuading Lord Bradford to abandon his motorcar project so that he would no longer require Lawrence's service as a mechanic. The difficulty was, however, that each scheme Lawrence had come up with involved some sort of damage to the Daimler. This would not be difficult for him to execute, knowing every knot and bolt of the motorcar as he did. But if any mischance befell it, Lawrence himself would be first to be blamed. More importantly, he was reluctant to damage the motorcar, for he had come to care for it in almost the same way that his father had cared for the family draft horse. But after hours of deliberation, a glimmer of an idea, yet not yet a full-blown scheme, had come to him. It did not solve the basic problem, of course, but it would let him get past it and allow him to fulfill both Amelia's desires and meet his own obligation. As dawn broke, Lawrence's plan began to make a clearer and brighter form in his head. Lady Marston's letter arrived by Saturday morning post. Kate, opening it, read the following. Nice, France, September 20, 1896. My dear Lady Catherine, I take up my pen as a concerned mother to appeal to you. It has come to the attention of Lord Christopher and myself that Patsy has become unwisely involved in a dangerous liaison with the young man, a guest of my son's at Marston Manor, and that this reckless relationship has been supported, indeed furthered by you. I believe I need not say that my son has acted injudiciously in the extreme to bring such a person into close acquaintance with his sister, and that it was quite irresponsible of my husband's aunt to allow the young man into my daughter's company at all. I must ask you to withdraw your support of this foolish intimacy and persuade Patsy, who is, for all her cleverness, inexperienced and headstrong, as a young girl can be, who can do much damage to herself and her family through unwise associations, to abandon her injurious friendship with this person. I am confident that now that you have been informed of the facts, you will do as I bid and withdraw your unwise sponsorship of this association. Yours, Henrietta Marston. Kate sat the letter in hand for some time. Lady Henrietta's imperious voice spoke clearly and offensively, but she could see the mother's predicament. It was true that Patsy was a headstrong, impulsive young woman, unlike her more compliant sister, Eleanor, who had married at her parents' wish. Never mind that Eleanor was already quite wretched. And it was true that Patsy's relationship with Charlie Rolls was probably a dangerous one, at least in the sense that it would lead to her eventual unhappiness. But unhappiness, in Kate's opinion, was relative, and might even be balanced out by moments of great happiness. She also felt very strongly that marriage was a matter of heart, and that daughters should not be the victims of their mother's matchmaking. Lady Henrietta obviously feared that Patsy's friendship with Rolls threatened the family's plan to marry Patsy to Squire Thornton and link the Marston estates to Thornton Grange. After thinking about it for a time, Kate decided she would say nothing of the mother's letter to the daughter, although she would do what she could to encourage the girl to think carefully about what she was doing. A little later in the morning, she had a chance. "You can preach all you like," Patsy Marston remarked loftily in response to Kate's question, "but I shan't change my mind. I intend to marry Charlie Rolls." "You have changed your mind, you know," Kate replied, and poured her guest another cup of tea. Outside the window of the drawing-room, she could hear the noise of the crowd gathering for the fete, the cries of children, the thwacking of the coconut shies, the shouts of a vendor hawking hot pies. "Only a fortnight ago you said you didn't intend to marry Charlie Rolls, or fall in love with him either, for that matter. You had set your heart on becoming England's first premier female photographer. What has happened to that ambition? I thought it a fine one, for which you have a great talent." Patsy pouted. "You don't like him." "My liking or disliking the young man has nothing to do with it." Patsy's pout deepened. "You think I should be a dutiful daughter and marry Roger Thornton?" Kate picked up her cup, drank and set it down again. "I think," she said deliberately, "that you should stop allowing your mother to push you into doing things you know you will regret." Patsy's cornflower blue eyes, and the same shade as her elegant silk dress, opened wide. "Then you're saying I should marry Charlie? Goodness, Kate, why can't you make up your mind?" "I am saying, Patsy, that you should neither marry to please your mother, nor marry to spite her." "To spite her?" "Yes, either will make you dreadfully unhappy and inflict a world of harm not only on yourself, but on the man as well." Kate leaned forward and put her hand on Patsy's arm, speaking with all the earnestness that she could summon. "Marry no one unless your heart, not the heart of a daughter nor that of a rebel, but your true woman's heart leads you to it, Patsy." Patsy was silent for a moment, and Kate wondered whether her words had struck so deeply that they offended, or whether they had merely glanced off an impenetrable surface. But at last the girl sighed and spoke. "No one will but you will talk honestly about such things, Kate. I fear you understand me too well." "I have learned to understand myself," Kate said, with a small smile, "and we are rather alike, you and I." "I think we are," Patsy said, "in spite of your being—" She stopped and bit her lip, colouring. "Being an American and Irish? Perhaps, Patsy, that is what makes us alike, you and I. We do not always think or feel or behave as those around us expect. It is hard for us not to do as we choose, even though we might not know exactly what that is. And yet you married." Patsy spoke almost accusingly. "I married when I knew that my heart had chosen well, and I have not regretted it." To herself, but not aloud, she added, "in spite of the difficulties." For there were difficulties. She and Charles were enjoying a temporary reprieve just now from the burdens of his family, but when his brother was dead, and Charles should become the Baron of Somersworth, those burdens would have to be shouldered. There would have to be a move to Somersworth so he could manage the family estate, a month in London when Parliament was sitting, and a social obligation in society that would be forever foreign to her. She had known of all this when she married Charles, of course, but that did not make it any easier to bear. Patsy clasped her hands. "I should so much like to be married to Charlie. He's a handsome, charming, and free-spirited, and he loves me. At least he says he does. With him, every minute would be filled with excitement, with freedom. He would take me flying in his balloon, motoring across England, climbing the Alps, and all the while I should be taking the photographs. Mama should have to give way, and I should never have to suffer Roger Thornton again." Kate heard the longing behind Patsy's word and understood it. "I'm sure Charlie does care for you," she said gravely. "You are a beautiful young woman with courage and wit, and you have every bit as much free spirit as he does. I can easily imagine you ascending in a balloon with your camera or touring Europe in your own motor car." "But that's not what Mama wants for me," the girl said. She twisted her gloves in her hands. "And if I do not marry Charlie, I shall have to agree to marry Roger Thornton." "Not so," Kate said sternly. "I grant you it might be easier to defy your mother as someone's wife, but you may confront her with equal success as yourself. All it takes is the courage to know what you want and the strength of will to choose." Patsy pressed her lips together. "If I refuse Squire Thornton, Mama would be sure you put me up to it. She doesn't like you, you know, ever since Bradford determined to marry you. Your brother wanted to marry me because he was in one of his dreadful fixes and thought it would be convenient to have a wife with a fortune. Your mother quite probably convinced him that it was not a good idea, and if she had not, I myself would have had to refuse him anyway." Kate added with asperity, "The point is not what your mother likes or dislikes. You're a woman of independent mind, Patsy. You must make your mother understand that you mean to exercise it." On that heresy, the French doors opened, and Charles looked in. "We shall be ready to launch in half an hour, Kate. Are you coming to see us off?" "Of course," Kate said. "And I shall be there too," Patsy said, "with my camera." "Good," Charles said. "We shall want a great many photographs." As he shut the door again, Kate wished that she had had a moment alone with him before he flew off into the blue. Not that she feared for his safety, of course. Bradford had assured her that Rose, despite his youth, was an experienced balloonist, and Charles himself was an extraordinarily capable man. Still, there were hazards, and many people had been killed in ballooning accidents. "Well," Patsy said, returning to the subject, "I'm not absolutely determined to marry Master Rose." She frowned. "I'm resolved against Roger Thornton, however." She gave a dramatic sigh. "Poor Roger is likely to suffer a great deal. He has his heart set on marrying me. I fear that he may be doing something unwise." "I doubt that," Kate replied lightly. "It is only in novels that lovers die from a broken heart." A moment later, though, Kate wondered whether she had been mistaken. She heard loud shouts and cries and thought the balloon must have been going up before its scheduled departure. But as she and Patsy with her camera hurried to the terrace, she saw Roger Thornton. He was marching ahead of a group of shouting men, and his expression was that of murder.